to the colossal toad, but its purpose remained a mystery. She had instructed him to hold it and recall the sensation of utilizing poison steps. Almost instantly, he senses a change. The core begins to meld into his body, and a notification from the lens device materializes, displaying his absorption progress. Finally, he assimilates the entire core, and the status window reveals the quantity of black ether consumed. The amount is quantified as BA, rising from 1.0 to 1.5 within him. By continuously absorbing BA, perhaps he could amplify his strength. Currently, however, his own power level remains unknown. The lens informs him that he presently possesses the strength of an E rank knight, but by exceeding a certain threshold of black ether absorption, he could eventually attain the capabilities of an S-rank knight. It seems Cairo wasn't exaggerating when she claimed he could become the world's most formidable hunter. Before further contemplating this revelation, he arrives at a checkpoint and overhears a dispute. Just adjacent, a man berates a terrified-looking woman who clutches an injured child. She appears to be desperately seeking medical attention at a hospital, but an unexpected checkpoint has materialized without warning. She pleads with the man as the child trembles in her arms, but her pleas only amplify the man's rage. He resorts to menacing her with physical harm. The child, overwhelmed by fear, bursts into tears. The man continues his tirade, peppering his rant with insults. He demeans them, labeling them as beggars. The injustice of the situation becomes unbearable for Hasten. He finally intervenes, putting an end to the abusive exchange. He denounces the man as repulsive, condemning his arrogance and self-importance in such a dire circumstance. He points out the hypocrisy of these officials, who were conspicuously absent. When the gate initially erupted, the man redirects his fury towards our protagonist. As he approaches them with a composed and steady gait, he finds it ludicrous that these very people, những kẻ vắng mặt khi hiểm nguy rình rập, giờ lại đột nhiên xuất hiện và cố gắng kiểm soát tình hình. Gã đàn ông hung hăng rút gậy ra và hỏi Hasten liệu có biết mình đang nói chuyện với ai không. Nhưng với chiếc huy hiệu to tướng trên áo vest của gã, thì chẳng ai có thể không nhận ra hắn ta. Mọi người ở Hàn Quốc đều biết họa tiết trên áo của gã, và họ đều biết đó là biểu tượng của hội vinh quang. Gã tiến về phía Hasten, cao ngất ngưỡng và toan áp đảo cậu. Điều tồi tệ hơn là hắn ta vẫn nói những lời lẽ đó, dù biết rõ họ là ai. Nhưng Hasten không hề nao núng, và còn thách thức gã đánh mình. Đây sẽ là cuộc chiến đầu tiên cậu tham gia kể từ khi thức tỉnh. Và khi gã giơ tay lên để dạy cho nhân vật chính của chúng ta một bài học, Hasten nhận ra mình đang sợ hãi. Nhưng chỉ vì sợ hãi, không có nghĩa là cậu sẽ trốn tránh khi cần phải chiến đấu. He intercepted the bat mid-swing, mere inches from his face, and snapped it in two with effortless ease. The man's eyes widened in terror. He knew he'd made a grave mistake. Cheon Hasen was utterly inexperienced in combat. As he cocked back a punch, his stance was wobbly, his breathing ragged and uneven. It was clearly the punch of a novice, completely green in the art of fighting. But the physiology of a metahuman was on an entirely different plane compared to ordinary humans. Even with his unrefined technique, the raw power behind his blow was enough to send the man sprawling unconscious. Sprawled on the ground, the man began to pathetically whimper for help. Heeson couldn't resist a sardonic jab at his sudden cowardice after just one punch, a stark contrast to his earlier bravado. When the gates first erupted, people had also screamed for rescue. But no savior came. They waited in vain, clinging to the hope that the Glory Guild would arrive and rescue them. But they never appeared. He quickly removed this redundant line, realized he was wasting his words on deaf ears, and turned to depart. The woman couldn't help but gaze at him in astonishment as he strode through the gate, completely unperturbed by the preceding events. After an extended journey, Hasten finally arrived at the destination indicated by his lens device. All that stood there was an ordinary phone booth, situated in such a secluded location that it seemed improbable anyone ever utilized it. Hasten lifted the receiver and placed it to his ear, but it appeared to be non-functional. Then, he pressed a concealed button beneath the receiver, and the booth instantly emitted a piercing shriek. Suddenly, a hatch sprung open beneath his feet, and he plummeted downward, crashing onto the floor of a bizarre, white chamber. Were he not a metahuman, the plunge would have undoubtedly been fatal. But his ordeal was far from over. Scanning the chamber, he spotted a sealed door to his left. That had to be his entry point. Yet his next move remained elusive. One thing, however, was certain. This Dr. Jean was no ordinary individual. He pushed himself up with his hand, but it landed in a pool of unidentified liquid. He raised his hand to his face and recognized the crimson fluid as blood. Before he could even question if he'd stumbled into the wrong location, a deafening siren blared throughout the room. A voice announced the system switched to base defense mode. As multiple firearms emerged from the ceiling, all trained on him, panic seized Hasten momentarily. The weapons discharged a peculiar, toxic gas, engulfing the entire space. He instinctively covered his nose. He pondered Dr. Jin's motive behind this. Being Carol's supposed close confidant, his thoughts raced as he inadvertently inhaled the noxious gas. But then a sudden realization struck him. He was immune to poison. As a poison master, toxins had no effect on it. In fact, breathing in the toxic fumes felt strangely invigorating. Suddenly, footsteps echoed, approaching his location. Someone was on the other side of the door. A masked figure peered into the poison-saturated room. Whoever's in there should be deceased by now, he muttered. He opened the door to assess the outcome. The instant he entered, Heisen ambushed him, wrestling him to the floor. He poised himself, ready to pummel the stranger. But before the brawl could commence, he noticed the man was already unconscious, succumbing to the initial assault. Later, Heisen recounted the events to the man. Comprehension dawned upon him as he learned of Kirill's intervention. Beyond that, however, he's more preoccupied with the fact that Hasten bound him so tightly. The ropes are constricting him, making it hard to breathe. Hasten remains skeptical, unconvinced that the doctor won't make a move the moment he's free. But Dr. Jean reassures him, promising everything will be fine. Firstly, he begins, those traps were specifically engineered to eliminate anyone without poison immunity. Any ordinary person would have perished instantly upon inhaling the gas. Hasten is unimpressed, urging the larger man to drop the act. But Dr. Jean is entirely serious. To begin with, he clarifies, this place is designed to be inaccessible to ordinary individuals. Only hunters and Carol can reach my laboratory. I'm a rather accomplished scientist, he adds. Naturally, my expertise has been sought after by many. Times were challenging in my youth, but I persevered through those arduous times. Despite my significance as a scientist and physician, there were individuals who targeted me for my accomplishments. Foreign assassins, he elaborates, operatives from shady organizations. Even seasoned hunters from the association were relentlessly pursuing him. There were undoubtedly motives behind this relentless pursuit. Perhaps it was his wealth, or maybe his exceptional technical prowess. Initially, he fought tooth and nail, striving to survive against all odds. But as time wore on, trust became an increasingly rare commodity. Even those assigned to protect him would treacherously attempt to take his life, eventually prioritizing his own survival. He isolated himself from all contact, succumbing to the grip of paranoia. He sought refuge in this sanctuary, constructing the elaborate trap room to deter any pursuers. Within those walls, every drop of blood was tainted, each stain a testament to sinister intentions and dreadful deeds. Hasten exhaled deeply, and despite lingering suspicions, he freed the man from his restraints. The man had demonstrated kindness thus far, offering no justification for undue hostility. Dr. Jin's trust stemmed from Carol's endorsement of the man. Carol's trust implicitly translated to Hassan's trustworthiness. At the nadir of his existence, teetering on the brink of death, the girl had appeared, offering solace under her umbrella and a helping hand. And based on his recollections of Kirill, this child bears a striking resemblance to her, even down to the peculiar markings that adorned their skin. He finds the similarity almost comical. The parallels between mentor and student are quite amusing. Hasten, however, remains oblivious, believing their only commonality is their shared affinity for poisons. Dr. Jean points out a deeper similarity, their unwavering determination to follow their own desires. He discloses that Kirill also possessed the same unsettling, dark purple blemishes in her youth. This revelation stuns Hasten, considering Carol's current beauty. Dr. Jean sighs, recognizing that a direct explanation would be more efficient than continued small talk. Instead of rambling, he decides to get to the point. They proceed to another section of the laboratory, where the doctor inquires about our protagonist's thoughts on the poison coursing through his veins. He admits to his limited knowledge on the subject. The doctor elucidates. explaining that a single droplet of his toxic blood possesses the potency to eliminate even a seasoned rank knight. It's so incredibly lethal that no manufactured chemical weapon can rival its destructive capability. Hasten comprehends that once a hunter ascends to A rank, conventional assaults are typically futile against them, and yet a mere bead of his blood suffices to obliterate such a formidable individual. Dr. Jean interrupts Hasten's contemplation, stating that, despite possessing immense power, such strength is rendered ineffective without proper regulation. Consequently, he must undergo rigorous training before he inadvertently becomes a catastrophic force. With that declaration, Dr. Jean guides him to a chamber replete with training apparatuses and resources for him to utilize and amplify his abilities. His scars serve as a manifestation, a clear indicator of his inability to manage his venomous toxins. Therefore, his immediate priority is to attain mastery over his poison, which will subsequently lead to the natural disappearance of the scars. The doctor reassures Haesun that he was the one responsible for Kirill's training. He'll be utterly transformed by the time he completes the rigorous program. With the explanation concluded, Dr. Jean gets down to business, instructing him to begin immediately. As Hasten diligently strives for self-improvement, Dr. Jean provides unwavering encouragement, preventing him from slacking off and amplifying the intensity of his training sessions whenever necessary. Despite their brief time training together, Hasten is already lifting weights that would crush an ordinary person. By the 7th day, under Dr. Jin's tutelage, significant transformations have occurred. Firstly, the doctor has finally removed his gas mask, likely signifying his trust in our protagonist. The first time Hasten saw the older man unmasked, he almost didn't recognize him. Secondly, his sister has awakened. She was instantly overcome with panic upon waking up and not finding him there. Naturally, she berated him for essentially abandoning her and disappearing to parts unknown. Despite this, she chose to place her faith in him. The third transformation involves a novel apparatus, engineered to facilitate his development as a hunter. One day, Dr. Jean approached him, presenting him with a groundbreaking device. It comprised 3 distinct gadgets, including a refined iteration of the one Kirill had provided. Dr. Jean conceived and constructed this remarkable instrument in a mere 3 days. Finally, the most profound alteration was within our protagonist himself. His physique underwent a series of significant metamorphoses. Following the rigorous training, not only had his spots faded considerably, but he had also developed an impressive musculature in a remarkably short time. The rapidity of this transformation astonished both him and Dr. Jean. He seemingly acquired a sculpted physique and a handsome visage overnight. His appearance became so strikingly attractive that it nearly provoked envy in Dr. Jean. As their training progressed, Hasten ventured to inquire whether the doctor felt weary of their subterranean confinement. After all, he had endured solitude down there for an indeterminate period. It's astonishing he's withstood it for so long. Dr. Jean corrects him, stating